It's 6:40. The Platting Board is going to come to order, and it is January, let's say the 15th. And the first item is roll call. May we have the secretary call roll, please?
Mr. Story?
Here.
Mr. Abel? Mr. Fuller?
Here.
Mr. Young?
Present.
Mr. Cole? Mr. Kange? Mr. Edmondson?
Here.
Mr. Walker?
Here.
Ms. Enix? Thank you.
We have a short board tonight. We have a quorum, but we have a short board, and in the case of a short board, you can, I'm going to postpone just for 1 second. Looks like from the most recent phone conversation, we're going to have a short board for 10 more minutes. When there is a short 5-member board and a postponement is offered to and agreed to by the petitioner, they will be moved to the next regular agenda. This should occur within 30 days, which does not require renoticing the case. New public hearing notices advertising. If the petitioner is willing to postpone but unable to attend the next available meeting date within 30 days, the petitioner has a one-time only option to choose the next date certain he or she can attend at no extra fee. When a postponement is requested by the petitioner, there is a rescheduling fee listed in the AMCR 21.20.007.A, and a new public hearing date shall be determined by the Planning Division. This will put the case in the next available cutoff date queue as if they were submitting their case for the first time. Are there any of the petitioners tonight that wish to postpone their case? And they're both shaking their head sideways, which I assume means no.
No, thank you.
Then we will proceed. The next item on the agenda is approvals, and we have action summaries from Wednesday, December 4th. I have a positive motion to accept the action summaries. Mr. Walker and Mr. Edmondson seconds. Dave, did you have a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to just to confirm that, is it Mr. Cole that's on his way?
Yes, that's correct.
I would suggest maybe a short recess and allow him to get here and settle in before we actually start the public hearing process.
I think we could go ahead and cover the
Do you think
administrative
the consent agenda, sure, but the regular agenda.
I agree. Thank you. Okay, we have a motion on the floor for the to accept the action summaries. Is there any opposition, any discussion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. The next item is the minutes. The next item on the agenda is the minutes from January 2nd, 2013. May I have a positive motion to accept these minutes? Mr. Fuller makes the motion. Mr. Walker seconds. And is there any discussion or opposition? Hearing and seeing none, this motion carries. The next item is the short plat, and these are just for review. Are there any comments on the short plats? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on. The next item on the agenda is special order of business disclosures. And are there any disclosures tonight? Hearing and seeing none, I have one. In the matter of case S12039-1 Highland Terrace subdivision, my firm has business dealings with the petitioner's representative. I have no financial or personal interest in the matters before the board tonight. I can remain impartial in fact and action as a member of this board without personal bias. My past involvement and personal interest will not prevent me from fairly evaluating the facts of this case. And regarding this subdivision, I have not worked on this at all. Is there, may I have a positive motion directing me to participate, please? Mr. Walker and Mr. Edmondson seconds. Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
I move to direct you to participate in the action 12039-1 Highland Terrace subdivision, edition number 5. Your disclosure of business dealings in the past are not present, don't constitute present financial interest. You stated you can be impartial and fair in the evaluation of this matter, and I would direct that you participate.
Thank you. Are there any discussion? Any additional discussion? Any opposition? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries, and I'm directed to participate. There's nothing on the consent agenda tonight, and then on old business, there's no old business tonight. The next item on the agenda is new business, public hearings, and we are going to take a short recess for probably 5 minutes. Speak freely, talk amongst yourselves. Our short break, recess, and begin the public hearing with the short board. The procedure by which the public may speak to the Platting Board at its meeting is, after the staff presentation is completed on public hearing items, the chair will ask for public testimony on the issue. Persons who wish to testify will follow the time limits established in the Commission rules and procedures. Petitioners, including his or her representatives, have 10 minutes. Part of this time may be reserved for rebuttal. And I just want to clarify that if you don't use all of your time, the remaining time you will be able to use it for rebuttal. But if you wish to specifically reserve time for rebuttal, let's say that you want to reserve 2 minutes, tell us at the beginning, we'll set the clock, and you'll be warned when your 8 minutes are up, and that way you'll still have your 2 minutes for rebuttal. Representatives of groups, community councils, PTAs, etc. have 5 minutes, and individuals have 3 minutes. When your testimony is complete, you may be asked questions by the board. You may only testify once on any issue unless questioned by the board. Any individual may have appeal rights relating to any action the Platting Board takes. Appeal of this decision or any of the conditions is governed by AMC 21.11.304. The decision of the board at the scheduled public hearing shall become final 7 calendar days after the date the decision is made on the record, unless a written request is submitted to the Planning Division prior to the expiration of the 7th day to prepare a written decision based upon the record made at the hearing, and the request is accompanied by a written notice of intent to appeal. Adoption of the written decision by the Planning Board becomes the final appealable decision within 20 days of the final appealable decision. An interested party must file with the municipal clerk either A, written motion alleging new evidence or changed circumstances per 21.11.503, or an appeal of the board's final appealable decision per AMC 21.30. And I want to reflect on the record that Mr. Cole has arrived at 6:57. Mr. Cole, I know we cut you off guard, but do you have any disclosures tonight?
The only disclosure that I have is in case number F.1.A, Troy Davis Homes, Inc. I'm an attorney and was involved in litigation against the owner of Troy Davis Homes last year. That case settled, and it has nothing to do with this as far as I know. I don't have any significant monetary interest in this. I do not believe that I have a substantial financial interest or a substantial private interest in the matter before the body.
Thank you. May I have a positive motion directing Commissioner Cole to participate? Mr. Walker. And Mr. Edmondson seconds. Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
I move to direct Frank Cole to participate in this matter. He disclosed that he had a prior adverse interest to Troy Davis Homes, or least known as Troy Davis Homes. That would not be a matter that's, or doesn't reflect any financial interest in the matter before us, and I think he can participate fairly.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Any opposition to the motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Mr. Cole, you're directed to participate. Thank you. The first case tonight is case S12037-1, Horizon Estates Subdivision and Lake Ridge Terrace Subdivision. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a preliminary plat to subdivide one lot and 2 tracts of land into 12 lots with a vacation of a few screening easements. The petition site is zoned R2ASL, two-family residential district with special limitations. The proposed lots 1 through 11 are subject to the provisions outlined in AO 2013-88. The only special limitation for those lots requires a minimum lot size to be 40,000 square feet or greater. Proposed Lot 3A is subject to the provisions of AO 82-111S, with that special limitation requiring a minimum lot size of a half an acre. Each lot within the proposed subdivision meets the minimum lot size required with their special limitations. The existing road that is adjacent to these lots is currently constructed to municipal standard but lacks a cul-de-sac bulb at its western terminus. The municipal traffic and private development departments are requiring a 24-foot wide strip paved street with 2-foot wide gravel shoulders on both sides of the cul-de-sac and having a 41.5-foot radius to the edge of the pavement with a 50-foot return radius. And that will be required with this project. The petitioner is also proposing to vacate 3 15-foot wide screening easements and 1 30-foot wide screening easement located along the interior boundary of existing tract B1. The vacation requests have been reviewed and found to conform to the municipal vacation policy. Tract B1 was created by Plat 8582, and at that time the tract was zoned PLI and was under the management of a Heritage Land Bank. Because there was this distinct possibility of the land being disposed of, the screening easements were dedicated by that plat in an effort to lessen the impacts of the potential PLI use on the surrounding residential neighborhood and school. Tract B1 was rezoned from PLI to R2ASL in September of 2013. Because this property has been rezoned to R2ASL, staff no longer sees the need for the dedicated screening easements, and with that would recommend and support vacation of those easements. That being said, staff would like to recommend approval of the plat and vacation subject to the conditions listed on pages 9 and 10 of your staff packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions of staff? Will the petitioner's representative please step forward, state your name, spell your last name for us, and let us know if you'd like to reserve time for rebuttal.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Charles Forbes. I'm representing the petitioner, and I believe I'll have plenty of time for rebuttal. We agree to all the staff's recommendations and here to answer any questions.
Thank you. You have 9 minutes and 45 seconds for rebuttal. Are there any questions of the petitioner? Thank you.
Thank you.
Would you like to use, oh, excuse me, Mr. Story?
I just had one question, Mr. Forbes. On the exterior boundary where you're vacating the 30-foot screening easement, is there a screening easement on that PLI land on the exterior of the subdivision?
Not that not on the other side to the west of us.
Yes.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. I was just, with PLI lands, that's typical for them to have the screening easements to protect the surrounding communities from that PLI land. So I guess on that one side, it's interesting that you're
Yeah, the
vacating
plats I've seen, I haven't seen one.
for the PLI land.
For the other PLI land, yes.
This property that you're subdividing has those easements on it.
Yes.
And other ones that I've seen for school sites and so forth have always, typically have the screening easements to protect these subdivisions that are adjacent to those PLI lands. So it's just interesting that there's not one on that side, but you're trying to vacate the one on the interior. Thank you.
Any other questions for the petitioner's representative? Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify? Anyone at all? Hearing and seeing none. One last chance for rebuttal. There's no desire for rebuttal. The public hearing portion of this case is closed, and the matter now rests with the board. May I have a positive motion for approval of the vacation? Mr. Walker. Mr. Edmondson seconds. Mr. Walker, will you state your motion, please?
As the case S120371, Horizons Estates subdivision, I move to approve the request to vacate 3 15-foot screening easements and 1 30-foot screening easement located along the interior boundary of existing Tract B1, subject to recording a suitable plat within 18 months of its preliminary approval.
Thank you. And Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
Being mindful that the approval of vacation requires the Platting Board to consider the merits of the vacation request, and that we deem all of the area vacated to be value of the municipality unless proven otherwise, I think that the burden of proof has been met by the petitioner in this case. The screening easements are for the benefit of PLI property. This is no longer zone PLI property and therefore no longer necessary to the city for the purposes of protecting this plat or surrounding properties from the use of this property now that it has been zoned as housing. There's no indication or evidence that the easements are providing any value to the city any longer, and I would move that they be vacated.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, or any additional discussion? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion passes. May I have a positive motion for the approval of the plat, subject to conditions, please? Mr. Walker and Mr. Edmondson seconds. Mr. Walker, will you state your motion, please?
As the case S120371, Horizon Estates subdivision, I would move to approve the plat for 18 months, subject to the conditions 1 through 9 is shown on pages 9 through 10 of the staff report.
Thank you. And would you speak to your motion, please?
I believe in reviewing the staff material and the comments from the public as attached that the plat meets the Platting Board standards, and believe that the plat should be approved.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Is there any opposition to this motion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries and the plat is approved. We're going to take a couple of minute recess while Mr. Cole reviews the documents that were placed on the desk tonight. Probably 2 or 3 minutes. We're back on record at 7:10, and the next case is S12039-1, Highland Terrace Subdivision, Edition Number 5. May we have staff's presentation, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a preliminary plat and request for subdivision of 3 tracts of land into 2 tracts of land with the vacation of a portion of right-of-way known as Steeple Drive and a 10-foot utility and slope easement. The petition site is zoned R6 Suburban Residential District and R9 Rural Residential District. Each tract within the proposed subdivision meets the minimum lot size and width required by those zoning districts. The tracts are proposed would create split zoning. The petitioner is required to delineate the zoning on the plat prior to recording. The traffic section believes that the proposed plat does not adequately accommodate turning and maneuvering for emergency ingress and egress of response equipment and personnel in the cul-de-sac there. The petitioner is required to resolve with the traffic section the need to design and construct a turnaround at the north terminus of Steeple Drive in accordance with AMC 218240 design standards for cul-de-sacs. Petitioner is also requesting to propose, or is requesting to vacate a portion of right-of-way, Steeple Drive, and that 10-foot utility and slope easement. The vacation requests have been reviewed and found not to conform to municipal vacation policy. This right-of-way connects to a section line easement which serves as the only legal access to the unsubdivided parcel to the east of this petition site. Because of this, staff finds that the right-of-way is not access to municipal need. This determination is supported by the right-of-way section, private development, non-motorized transportation coordinator, and Eagle River Street Maintenance. Furthermore, the two-gauge access plan identifies a trail access point known as ER10 at Steeple Drive. While this plan has not yet been adopted by the Assembly, it has been provisionally adopted by the Planning and Zoning Commission and recommended for approval to the Assembly. A public hearing before the Assembly should occur here in the near future. While this right-of-way is not access to municipal needs, staff would support the vacation of the right-of-way if a 60-foot right-of-way was dedicated to connect to the section line easement. This would allow for continued legal access to the unsubdivided parcel to the east. The petitioner had submitted, and I provided a memo to the board. The petitioner had provided 2 different copies of the plat. One had offered a 60-foot wide private access easement. I'm told after the fact that they were not offering that and that that was not to be included. So in my staff report, I said that a 60-foot wide private access easement was unacceptable, and staff still finds that that is unacceptable. We would only accept the dedication of a 60-foot wide right-of-way. So if the petitioner would like to, in essence, trade right-of-way for right-of-way, the staff would entertain that idea. With that being said, staff does recommend approval of the vacation request subject to the dedication of a 60-foot wide right-of-way at Steeple Drive to connect to that section line easement between sections 6 and 7. And the location of that right-of-way is to be resolved with the current planning section. And then also recommends approval of the plat for 18 months subject to conditions 1 through 6 located on pages 6 and 7 of your staff report. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions of staff? I have one just for clarity. The vacation request is shown on the map, shows that the steeple ending in the north-south portion is being vacated. Is there and the access, just so I understand, the access to the property to the east would be at the north end of what's being proposed to be vacated, and from there It would be an east-west, well, the section line easement is the other one?
Through the chair, that is correct. There's a section line easement that runs east-west, essentially at the northern terminus of the dedicated right-of-way. The section line easement begins and would connect to the unsubdivided parcels to the east. So what we're trying to achieve is a dedicated right-of-way that would connect to that section line easement that would allow for access, legal access to the parcels to the east.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of staff? The hearing is seen none. The public hearing portion of this hearing is now open, and would the petitioner's representative please come forward, state your name for the record, spell your last name for the record, please, and allow us to know if you would like to reserve time for rebuttal.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, planning staff, and concerned members of the public. My name is Tom Dreher, and I represent the petitioner tonight, Dr. Richard Peters. I'm with S4 Group, and also here tonight is Mr. Scott Gerlach, the attorney. We would like to modify condition number 4 by deleting condition number 4. We're fine with condition number 1 and 2 of A and B 1 through 5A, B, and C. If you look at your map on probably your large map where you can see the topo better, the area of the existing right-of-way, where it intersects the section line up there, if you go either way, you're in a 15% slope. So where it's accessing the section line easement is an unbuildable location. So our proposal, as we've worked out with planning staff, is to move the 60-foot right-of-way basically between the tract 9 and tract 8 along that lot line. And what that provides is an intersection point along the section line where to get up to the very northeast corner of tract 9, it's only a 9% grade, which is still steep, but it's buildable. In the Chugach access plan, the main area that they're looking to access is what is area 11. It's called ER 11 on the plan that's not actually adopted by the Assembly yet. That's to the southeast of that section corner you see there. There's a plan, long-range plan for a future parking lot up there. There is one note that we would like to add on to kind of as a friendly amendment to the plat conditions. Note 7 would read, the dedicated right-of-way is for vehicular development only and not for trail use development. And the reason for that is that if you are aware of the Glen Heights traffic situation up there and the parking problems they have, you'll understand that this is kind of a similar type situation. We're saying, fine, we'll give you a right-of-way that someone could build at a future date to get up to that area, but don't just build a trail within that area. Build a road up there, fine, people can drive up there and park. But if it's utilized just as a trail, then it's going to be the same issue that Glen Alps has, where there's no place to park. So people are going to park anyway, so they end up parking on the street, and then the streets aren't wide enough. And it causes a lot of traffic issues and problems and congestion. So, with that, and I apologize for the different copies that came out. I guess a couple of copies came out that showed a 60-foot PUE easement. But that would be just basically in the same area that we're proposing the 60-foot dedicated right-of-way. All right, and with that, I will leave the rest of the time for rebuttal. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there questions of the petitioner's representative? Mr. Whitfield, and then Mr. Edmondson, and then Mr. Walker.
I just want to just comment on the plat note, proposed plat note. I just want to let you guys know that staff does not support that. It does go against the Chugach Access Plan. As was stated in the staff report, there is a proposed connection there, ER10. It is slated to go before the assembly, and I wouldn't support a plat note being placed on the plat that would basically eliminate any kind of trail use there.
Thank you. And Mr. Edmondson is next.
Thanks to the chair, Mr. Dreyer.
Yes.
Just for clarity, on the department recommendations, I think what I heard from you was that you were okay with A, 1, and 2.
Correct.
B, 1, 2, and 3, but not 4.
Correct.
And you're okay with 5, A through C, and 6, A through B. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that you were proposing an additional condition of 7.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Also, for clarity, can you show me where you're proposing that the 60-foot easement be shifted to again?
It'd be, excuse me, it'd be very close to the lot line that exists now between, or proposed lot line between Tract 8 and Tract 9.
Okay, so it just follow that lot line?
It'd just follow that line.
Okay, instead of going straight, it would have...
Yeah, it ends up being only a 3% slope for most of it. It's cutting across the hill, where the existing right-of-way actually goes downhill, which, sorry, what, I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, sure. Do you want to just pass it around, or? Between the lot line between 8 and 9 right there.
Mr. Mayor, would you approach so we can all see it? Thank you. So it's this route right here?
Yeah, it's fine. Oh, thanks. Okay. Yeah.
I'd also like to stress the importance that we delete number 4, because to build a cul-de-sac in this area would probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 to $150,000, and considering the fact that we're dealing with a 62-acre, 2-lot subdivision, that's a bit onerous on the developer. We're decreasing the number of units, going from 3 lots to 2 lots, and from possible 6 units down to just 4,
Okay.
2 structures.
And Mr. Walker had a question or two?
I noticed that in the area that you're asking to vacate, that part of the area that's been hashed is being vacated crosses into the 33-foot road easement at the section line. So should the area being vacated not be the full 460 or 486 feet, but maybe 453 feet?
Oh, so the question is, what about that area where it intersects?
There at the section line.
Yeah, so the existing dedication would completely go away because it goes to the section line.
But
The section line easement would remain. Yeah, because we're not affecting the section line easement that goes from the east to the west. No. You can recommend dedication of a section line, and it has to go through the state DOT process.
And what do you base the estimate on the cul-de-sac costs? How do you come up with the 100, 150?
We asked a builder, a contractor, GMC Construction, that does a lot of our work in subdivisions.
And he gave a bid on that project?
Not a bid, no.
Have you been involved in doing other cul-de-sacs elsewhere?
Quite a few subdivisions over the last 30, 40 years.
And over the last couple of years, what have they been running?
Well, it depends on the type of construction. I mean, it includes curb and gutter and sidewalks. So GMC Construction has done a lot of developments for us, and that's the proposal. Their estimate on this one here was 100 to 150.
And that
Because that changes depending on the soil condition. You go down 10 feet and you find good dirt, it's a little cheaper. Find more peat, it's more expensive.
Now, is it your position that there is no nexus here between the government's interest in having a cul-de-sac?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
No nexus in this case between the government's interest in having a cul-de-sac there to turn around safety vehicles?
Yeah, it's not the responsibility of this owner. If we were doing a huge subdivision there and increasing the traffic, but we're in essence actually decreasing the traffic load. Because right now you have 3 separate lots in there, and we're reducing that down to 2 lots.
So is it your position that it would be easier and safer to turn the emergency vehicles around under the road as they're proposing it?
I'm not exactly.
Well, you made a road proposal here, correct?
Scott Gerlach. I also represent Dr. Peters. I think you're getting to the exaction standards, the Nolan and Dolan standards.
Sure.
I don't think we're going to be contesting that there's a valid government interest in turnarounds as far as the nexus is concerned. It really comes down to the Dolan standard and the rough proportionality. And what you have to look at is, like Mr. Dre was saying, there's actually going to be a decrease in the density. So now, first, there's not going to be any actual development going on. All we're doing is moving a lot line. So as far as an increased need for any vehicle turnaround, much less emergency vehicle turnaround, there's absolutely no change whatsoever that's going to be occasioned by that. Where the road actually is right now, and perhaps Tom could point this out if he needed to, there's sort of a dirt cul-de-sac that's already there servicing the driveways that go in. That spot is not going to be changed because that's outside of what's being affected. That's still on the steeple right-of-way. The actual section that's going to be either we request to be vacated, but it's going to be moved, is completely undeveloped. So there's actually no impact at all. So it really comes down to the Dolan standard of the rough proportionality, because there's no increase in need for fire safety. So therefore, to ask the applicant, Dr. Peters, to shoulder that expense would really be unreasonable, because if he was adding 10, 15 homes here, it would be a different story. But he's not doing that. Actually, with the home requirements, only 1 home per lot, it's going to be decreasing the potential for density. So that's why I think in my letter we submitted, that would be an unconstitutional taking if traffic was to impose that condition on the applicant, because there's no rough proportionality. That's really the aspect of the Nolan-Dolan standards that we're focused on.
Mm-hmm. Now, this road access is supposed to provide access to which of these lots?
Moving the right-of-way, is that what you're asking about? Frankly, the 3 lots, the north 40 acres Dr. Peters' home and also the rental house that he has, I think it was on, it would be tract 9, those are already served at the southern portion of the plat here. So the driveways are already there and can be serviced. So the right of way that's being moved isn't going to be serving any of those 3 properties or the or any homes in the area. It's really only being done to provide access to that section line easement, which is a big concession, quite frankly, and a good access that's being provided to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mr. Story, then Mr. Edmondson, then Mr. Whitfield.
Yes, Mr. Dreyer, the way that I read this and what's in front of the board tonight for approval in note number 4 is just resolving with the traffic section the need to design and construct. We aren't approving that it's required to construct. It's just resolving the need for with traffic sections. So it's not, to me, an onerous statement saying that you working with traffic on the need for that, which
that is a fair question, but by placing that as a condition, it still leaves open a possibility for an unconstitutional taking. If there is no proportionality, even if traffic was to request that, it wouldn't be a valid, development exaction. So in that sense, if that's like, it's leaving the possibility for something unconstitutional to happen. So we would request respectfully that they be taken off at this stage so that it doesn't turn into an issue down the road.
but I'm not sure that it's our responsibility to determine legal opinion on one way or the other on this. It's just resolving the need for with traffic. So that's really between.
Well, when you put in resolve the need with the traffic engineering department, they're going to require us to build it. And the cold hard facts of the matter is, if the petitioner is required to build that, the subdivision doesn't happen. I mean, as you can easily see, no one's going to spend $100,000 to $150,000 to build that cul-de-sac to turn 3 lots into 2. It's kind of a win-win situation for everybody. We have a right-of-way now that doesn't work. It doesn't work for accessing up to ER 11. It hits the section line where no one can use it going uphill or downhill. So we're really improving the situation immensely, actually.
But that same argument can be in front of traffic engineering, and if they agree with that, that's fine. But that's not really, in my opinion, our position.
Well, it is a Platting Board decision. It's your decision.
Approve or disapprove. But
Excuse me?
I said it is for this note to approve or disapprove the condition.
Right, yeah. If this notice
doesn't state that it's a requirement to build it.
But I understand that it's in semantics here, because when you say resolve with traffic engineering, they're going to require it to be built. That's pretty much a given. It's kind of like handing some candy to a baby. They're going to take it.
Thank you.
And over the years, there's been many notes like this. I mean, that's why we come to the Platting Board. That's why the Platting Board exists, is to figure out the gray area. Thank you.
Excuse me, are there any other questions? Mr. Edmondson has a question.
Thanks, Chair. I actually have a question for staff. Is this appropriate time? Okay.
Yes.
Through the chair, staff, Mr. Whitfield, could you explain to us traffic's opinion on why the requirement to construct a turnaround at the north terminus of Steeple Drive?
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, traffic's opinion is that the plat, as shown, with the vacation of the right-of-way, does not adequately accommodate turnaround maneuvering for emergency ingress and egress of response vehicles. I had a short conversation with a representative of the traffic department after Mr. Dreyer and I had a conversation with regard to the dedication of a new 60-foot right-of-way, and he said he would entertain the idea of not constructing that turnaround if, in fact, right-of-way was to be dedicated. However, he did not put that in writing. And so in an effort to allow the traffic department to review a plat proposed by Mr. Dreyer and determine at that point in time whether or not improvements to that cul-de-sac were required and needed, I made that condition a resolve comment. So that can be resolved with the traffic department.
Okay, so I'm just going to reiterate, I think what you said was that essentially the plat that was reviewed by traffic showed a vacation of the right-of-way. Okay, so therefore he commented on the plat that was before him that showed him that vacation. The plat that he reviewed did not show the proposed location for the 60-foot right-of-way that would essentially run between lots 8 and 9. Is that correct?
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, you are correct.
Okay, and what I think I heard you say was had he seen that, his opinion might be different as to what the requirement would be for a turnaround, and therefore you've added the note to resolve with traffic.
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, that is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fuller. You may proceed.
Also for staff, through the chair, please. So currently, where Steeple Drive meets this track, there's adequate turnaround now for the city vehicles?
Through the chair, Mr. Fuller, I do not believe so.
Well,
no.
You mean because it's not constructed or because they don't have adequate space?
Because it's not constructed. I believe is suitable right-of-way there to construct a turnaround. It's just not constructed.
Yeah, it looks like there's a substantial amount of area there for them
That's correct.
to do that. So they're just want to reserve the right to have somebody else do what they would have liked to have done a long time ago and never did.
Potentially. However, I would like to give the traffic department the opportunity to, essentially re-review a proposed plat with the dedication of right-of-way to determine if that turnaround is the improvements to that turnaround are necessary.
So is the petitioner then correct in he's actually diminishing the need for that access by reducing the number of potential occupants?
To be through the chair, Mr. Fuller, I would say that I wouldn't say it's diminishing. I would just say that the impacts to that property and to that right-of-way remain the same as they were, or as they are today.
So there isn't any...
I wouldn't say they're diminishing. I would say they're the same.
So there isn't any benefit or decrease by them not doing it?
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Are there any additional questions of the petitioner's representative? I do. You mentioned in the future a parking lot, and would that parking lot serve as a turnaround?
Yes, it would. It's called, excuse me, ER 11, and it's southeast of the northeast corner of Track 9.
And is the cost to build that parking lot, how does that relate to the cost of building a cul-de-sac?
Well, building a parking lot up there will probably be definitely in the future sometime. That would be a city park kind of funded project.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And the next question, were there was two trail accesses, ER 11 and ER 10?
Yeah, there's actually ER 10, ER 11, and ER 12B right in the same general area. ER 10 is at the intersection of the right-of-way and section line, and ER 11 is what we just talked about. The ER 11 is the main piece that they're trying to get to because it's a location that they own, that the HLB or the Parks Department owns that area.
And the the proposed right-of-way that you have that goes to the proposed trailhead for ER11
Correct.
is over a less steep route, which would make that more feasible to access?
Yes. With the existing right-of-way, you have to climb a 15% slope. And with our proposed, it's only a 9%, which is buildable in a hillside area. By code, 15% is not buildable. So with existing right-of-way, you cannot access ER11. With the one we're proposing, you can.
Thank you. And on item number 7, would you mind reading that so that we can get that into the record, please?
For the record, right-of-way is for vehicular development only, not for trail use development.
Right-of-way is for vehicular use only?
Development only, not for trail use development. And that's a sort of a friendly amendment, if you will. And I know there's a lot of complications involved with that one, but it's to prevent the same kind of situation that the city has up at Glen Alps parking lot, where it's kind of a big deal up there. And the density is decreased because we're going from 3 tracks down to 2 tracks. So it's just per code that it's less dense.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Edmondson has another question for you.
Thank you.
Through the chair, Mr. Gerard, just a question on your proposed Amendment 7. The way that you've got it proposed, what if there was vehicular traffic and trail traffic designed within that 60-foot right-of-way?
Well, that makes sense then. The main point here is just not to have only a trail, because then they're going to park where there's no parking allowed.
I guess it wasn't clear to me that that's what you were proposing, is that trail only wasn't acceptable.
Yes, correct.
Any additional questions of the petitioner's representative?
Actually, I've got one more through the chair, Mr. Gerard.
Edmondson.
Did you have any conversations with traffic in regards to your proposed alignment of the 60-foot right-of-way and what that meant to the turnaround?
No, the last time I talked with traffic, we were just vacating the right-of-way. I have not talked with them since we have come up with a new plan that sort of solves all the issues we felt anyway.
Okay. And just to clarify, Mr. Whitfield, traffic hasn't seen this new proposed right-of-way alignment.
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, no, that's you are correct. They have not seen the new proposed plat.
Okay.
And that's why we're fine with that note to resolve the traffic engineering, because they might want to tweak it a little bit, and we're fine with that.
I thought you weren't okay with the resolve of traffic.
Oh, no, to resolve with traffic the location, because there'll be minor changes made according to their criteria. We're talking about the right-of-way.
Not the cul-de-sac.
Not the cul-de-sac, correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Whitfield.
Through the chair to the board, I'd like to just make it clear that I believe that the proposed plat note by the petitioner's representative is extremely premature. You know, we have an access plan that has been preliminarily approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission and is slated to go to the assembly. And I think that placing a plat note on it prohibiting trail access, which is what the Chugach access plan is proposing to do, is premature until that plan has gone before the assembly and has either removed that access point from the plan or has approved it as a trail access. So I think it's premature to put that plat note on there. And I quite frankly don't believe that it's appropriate on a plat note anyway, as a plat note.
Thank you. there any additional questions of the, there are. Mr. Fuller.
Through the chair to staff, please. If you have a right-of-way that passes through this cul-de-sac area, where do you have a cul-de-sac bulb with a right-of-way going through it? I don't, in my recollection, see that as a common occurrence anywhere.
Through the chair, Mr. Fuller, the right-of-way is already there. It's not in the form of a cul-de-sac bulb, but there is right-of-way there, and there is the necessary space provided to develop that as a turnaround.
And there'll still be a right-of-way through that.
That's correct.
So why would you need a turnaround created by these petitioners if your right-of-way goes right through it? You don't have a terminus. You have a right-of-way. You just haven't
because the
completed your construction in this ER 10.
We may be confusing ER 10 and the right-of-way. ER 10 is actually the Chugach Access Plan point of access, whereas the right-of-way itself is the right-of-way. The reason why the traffic department is requesting that a turnaround be constructed there is because the right-of-way that we have currently in place, or if you want to say the right-of-way being proposed, is not developed. And so, if in fact, so in essence, the right-of-way dead ends at the petitioner's property. There is not suitable turnaround there to get emergency response vehicles there currently. So with this platting action comes the requirement through traffic to actually construct that. If the traffic department deems that it's unnecessary with the rededication of right-of-way to serve as access to the tracks to the east, then I'm okay with that. But that determination, in my opinion, should be left up to the traffic department.
Because I have personally had experience with traffic where we dead-ended a right-of-way into a tract, and they required that we dedicate a cul-de-sac area, but with the anticipation of the future road, they didn't require we construct it outside of the actual road bed. And subsequently, if you have a right-of-way that actually goes through that, then I don't understand how you're anticipating that you have a terminus. Right-of-way exists either way.
Through the chair, Mr. Fuller, I can't speak to the situation that you were involved in and how it relates to this situation. I can only state what the traffic department's comments are and what the requirements are. And I believe that a resolve comment that the petitioner can work it out with the traffic department is warranted. So,
well, I guess I have one other question, because the petitioner referred to that whenever we say resolve, we're really giving the power hand to the city to require them. And in the past, I have not anticipated that that's what we were doing. We were allowing them to work out the details, but is that, in fact, a case that when we say resolve, the city thereby takes the higher hand and forces what they want rather than what's mutually beneficial?
through the chair, Mr. Fuller, I don't believe so. No, I believe that in development, it's always a give and take. It's always working with the developer. It's not the heavy hand of the municipality coming down on a property owner. I believe that if, in fact, the petitioner was to go to the traffic department, they may, in fact, remove the requirement to construct that turnaround. But without something in writing from the traffic department that says, you know, the need to construct this turnaround is no longer necessary with the dedication of the right-of-way, I'm not at liberty to say I support it. So I made it a resolved comment that they can work out with the traffic department.
Thank you.
May I speak, sir? I'm the petitioner. I'm retired. I have raised horses on this property. I'm trying to align my property lines to where my pastures are so that my pastures are all included in one piece of property. I'm not changing the use of this property one iota. I do not have the money to build a cul-de-sac come hell or high water. It's not going to happen. So, you know, to resolve this, it's not going to resolve. I can't do it. Period. End of story. You know, I am not impacting the use of this street or the cul-de-sac any more tomorrow, if this is approved, than I am today. There's exactly the same number of houses. There cannot be but one house per lot, so there's only going to be 2 houses in there. That's all that there ever will be. This is an extortion of the city, of my money, to make them do something that maybe they should have done years ago. Whoever built the street and put in, 30 lots or 40 lots up there, I didn't do that. So all of a sudden for them to extract this pound of blood out of me, and you bet your sweet bippy that if the traffic department says you have to do this, that'll be what it'll be. So it's either resolved now or, I'll just have to pull this out. I can't do this. I can't, and I've built things up there. It's on a steep slope. To build a cul-de-sac is a huge project there. And believe me, it'll cost $150,000. I know. I have built my driveways and my areas for my barn and, for my horses, and it's expensive to work on a mountainside, and to try and build a flat spot big enough to meet municipal standards isn't going to happen out of my pocket. I can't do it. So, it's either we resolve that by taking it out, but when you put resolve, that is the opportunity for the traffic department to try and extort from me doing what the city should have done in the first place, or that everybody should do through their taxes, but not me as an individual. This is not a development where I'm building a bunch of houses or making some money or something. I'm just trying to resolve my property lines, so where my horses are and where my pastures are. So if I ever sell my other house to one of my kids or to somebody else, then I still have my pastures intact. That's the bottom line of this. This is not some big thing. It's amazing to me how much this has already cost me to try and get this done. It's kind of stunning, actually.
Thank you. And Mr. Wisfield has a question.
I've got no question, but just kind of a follow-up comment in the petitioner's defense. I recognize the fact that constructing a turnaround there is expensive. However, this is a comment that came in through the traffic department that may very well be removed once the traffic department sees what the proposed plat is going to be. However, I'm not an engineer, I'm not the traffic department, and I'm not at liberty to just change or remove a condition that they felt necessary in reviewing the plat that was proposed. So while I recognize that this is expensive and that it may not be necessary, I feel uncomfortable with removing a resolve comment from a plat. Thank you.
Thank you. And are there any additional questions of the petitioner or petitioner's representative? Hearing and seeing none, thank you. You have 3 minutes and 29 seconds left for rebuttal, and we'll now have public comments.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify tonight? State your name for the record, please, and spell your last name.
Good evening. My name is Laura Demander. I'm the Platting and Zoning Representative of the Eagle River Valley Community Council. Demander, D-E-M-A-N-D-E-R.
And are you representing the Community Council tonight?
Yes, sir.
Then you have 5 minutes for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. First thing I'd like to say is the Community Council supports the concerns expressed by Eagle River Street Maintenance Foreman Mark Littlefield on page 47 of the packet. Secondly, the Community Council is concerned about the municipality giving up the right-of-way, which is included in the Chugach Park Access Plan and may limit the options of the municipality going forward if the access plan is implemented, including any restrictions placed by the amended proposal proposed by the petitioner tonight by placing a vehicular limitation on the right-of-way. The Community Council has heard concerns from its homeowners regarding other points of access for the Chugach Access Plan that are scattered throughout the neighborhoods that include much more restrictive and limiting access points that go through utility easements between houses that are 10 feet wide. So this actual municipal right-of-way that goes up to one of the Eagle River access points or the Chugach Park access points, are actual ones that we think are very important to maintain. So taking one away is something we do not support at all. Thirdly, the council is further concerned about the impact this vacation would have on the private property rights of the petitioner's neighbors. The petitioner has already egregiously blocked off access to the right-of-way to access the section line easement, to access the Chugach Park by hanging a private property sign across the right-of-way. And we don't believe that he would honor any private or right-of-way that would alter or veer off in another direction unless directed to do so. But condition B4, as implemented or as suggested by the petitioner tonight, would have not only an effect on him but his neighbors, in that if there's no way for fire trucks to get up there and turn around, that has an effect on the property owners nearby. There is a sort of a cul-de-sac. It's not as big as a normal municipal standard cul-de-sac where fire trucks can turn around and access the property owners who live next door. If you look at the map, there are, this is track 6A2 and the one below track 9. That's not numbered on the map, but there are homeowners who live there and further down Steeple Drive that are affected by the fact that there's no place for the fire trucks to turn around up there. An Eagle River access, or Chugach Park access point 11 is just too far away for the fire trucks to be able to turn around. So we believe that putting a condition on the Chugach Park access plan after it's been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission would be, frankly, outside the jurisdiction of the Platting Board. So that's all the comments I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, excuse me. We do have one question. Mr. Fuller.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Excuse me, you referenced the page 47 letter about the right-of-way, and the right-of-way is not going away, it's being improved relative to the steepness of the access. Are you aware of that?
I think Mr. Littlefield's concerns are more that it would be removed from public property, making it a private road, essentially. Well, the petitioner's proposal tonight, of course, which Mr. Littlefield would not have been aware of when he wrote his letter, is to make it a road access to a proposed parking lot at Chugach Access Chugach Park Access Point 11, which of course he would not have known when he wrote his letter. But by removing it from public property, you are making it essentially a private road. You can't make the assumption that the same private landowner is going to own these two properties in perpetuity.
Well, I think they're dedicating the right-of-way.
Right, and I understand.
To the 33-foot, well, 66-foot section line easement that accesses the park, correct?
Right.
So currently, people access up that right-of-way?
My understanding is that their alternative proposal tonight was to shift the right-of-way, to make it, to shift it over.
Currently going directly north on the right-of-way to the section line?
And to make that a road that goes up to the section line easement, and then it would turn right along the
No, I'm asking you, are they currently using the right-of-way that's asking to be vacated?
No, it's not currently being used.
It's not a right-of-way, it's not a developed right-of-way, there are no trails.
Excuse me, sir, I think this is my time. He asked a question of me. No, it's not currently being used, but it is part of the Chugach
And is
Park
the
access plan.
substantially steep there where it's fairly unusable?
Well, it's the side of the mountain, so all of it is considerably steep, but it does provide a place for hikers to get up to the park.
Okay. So if they use the alternative right-of-way that he's proposing that's not as steep and still accesses the same points, do you see that is happening here, or you think it's not happening?
I see some merit in providing a road access to a proposed parking lot. However, I don't see that this body has the jurisdiction to place that sort of restriction on something that's already been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission for the municipal assembly to vote on.
How do you think this right-of-way that exists got there now?
The right-of-way exists now, but the Chugach access plan has already been approved. And what you would be doing is putting a restriction.
Where's the access plan currently calling for the?
It has been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission to go to the municipal assembly, who will be voting on it imminently.
Where are they proposing the access to be?
There's one proposed at where the right-of-way currently meets the section line easement, and then currently where the section line easement meets the east property line, right?
Is this accurate where the current traffic trail is?
The current trail?
The current trail to access ER 11?
Isn't that? Yeah, that's yeah. So, may I approach?
Okay, so this is where that's very steep, and this is where he's proposing to move it to. So you're still going to have the same, actually you're going to have a longer right-of-way. He's actually giving you more property. But currently they're accessing through here, right? This is the current access point for Eagle River 11? The current trail?
Access 11.
Well, somebody submitted this, says it's the current trailhead used by the public. Is this accurate?
Mr. Whitfield?
The current trailhead used by the public to access Eagle River 11 is crossing private property illegally. The one on your map there.
Okay, thank you.
There are several more in the queue, Mr. Whitfield and then Mr. Walker.
Through the chair, I just need to clarify just a few things here. The comments that were provided by reviewing agencies were provided with the assumption that no right-of-way would be dedicated with the vacation of the existing right-of-way. So with this somewhat after-the-fact proposal to dedicate right-of-way, the situation somewhat changes. I spoke with Mark Littlefield today, and I explained to him that Mr. Dreyer had proposed to me to dedicate right-of-way, in essence, a right-of-way exchange, and I believe that he was satisfied with that. I think his big issue here is that we are not giving up the right-of-way. And if the petitioner proposes to rededicate right-of-way in a section of the property which provides better access to the unsubdivided parcels to the east, then I'm in support of that. I mean, I would fully agree with the petitioner that that the currently dedicated right-of-way, it's steep, and it likely cannot be developed. I've not looked at the grade for the section that they want to dedicate to right-of-way, but just in looking at the topography, it looks like the likelihood of that being developed over the current dedicated right-of-way is better. So I think that it needs to be pointed out that the reviewing agencies looked at this plat with the vacation only and no dedication of right-of-way, and those are the comments that you are getting now. So with this proposal to dedicate, it may be that their comments change. I would venture to say that they would change. So, and that folks would probably support the vacation with a rededication. Staff certainly supports it.
Thank you. Mr. Walker.
Have you been up Steeple Drive to the end here where it terminates?
I've not gone up the right-of-way, no.
Is that blocked off by fences, et cetera? He said he uses it for horse pastures. Is it the right-of-way to the section line actually blocked off?
The right-of-way at the section line?
Well, Steeple Drive right now has a right-of-way. He's asking to have that vacated. Is the right-of-way open, or is the right-of-way actually blocked off by fences?
Is it blocked off? Is it blocked off by fence?
Coming up the road here, there might be fences, and there might be, but I haven't been up there because there's also private property right up there.
We don't know the answer to that question.
And Mr. Cole.
I have a question for staff. So, will you explain to me the chronology of what's happened here? Did we get this proposal without a change in the vacation, and then all these comments came out, and then after that, this new proposal came in?
Through the chair, Mr. Cole, yeah, I can break it down for you. Essentially, the petitioner submitted an application to vacate the right-of-way with no dedication, simply vacate the right-of-way. Staff reviewed it, reviewing agencies have reviewed it, they offered comments, staff prepared a staff report. Once the staff report was signed and released to the public, the petitioner's representative, and I presume the petitioner, had the opportunity to look at it, and at that point in time they may have thought that maybe it's not favorable, and so they wanted to offer the dedication.
I don't care what they thought, but at the end of the line is it went out, and then after that, we got a new proposal, which is what we're dealing with right here today.
After the staff report was prepared, that's correct.
We're trying to figure out what people who already made comments on would do if they had this new proposal, which they don't have in front of them.
Through the chair, Mr. Cole, I would say that all the reviewing agencies are opposed. Well, the agencies that offered opposition to the vacation of the right-of-way, if in fact the petitioner was to rededicate right-of-way in an area that would better serve those properties to the east, I think they would be in support of that.
Okay, so that's one of my questions. My next question is, if we adopt number 4, which I see is nothing being mandated to be done, but we require them to work it out, and they're unable to work it out, does the petitioner have any options at that point to come back in front of us?
Through the chair, yeah, I would say that they could come back at that point in time and submit a new plat that basically would remove that requirement. I mean, they could actually submit a request to the Platting Board to remove that requirement if they couldn't come to in agreement with the traffic department. I should state that I did have a conversation with the traffic department, and they seemed like they would entertain the idea of not improving those or not requiring those improvements. However, I don't feel comfortable holding to that. So
I understand that.
Yeah.
I'm really more interested in what.
they could potentially come back to the Platting Board and request that to be removed.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Mr. Edmondson.
Question from staff through the chair. Would it make sense for the petitioner to postpone this action tonight in order to maybe resolve this issue with traffic and give them a chance to remove this condition prior to our taking action tonight?
Through the chair, Mr. Edmondson, if the board felt that that was necessary, I wouldn't object to it. I think that this is something that that the petitioner or petitioner's representative could have gone to the traffic department after the staff report came out and got something in writing from them. I think they had ample time. They certainly had time to come and speak with me. So if the board believes that's the appropriate action, then I would not oppose that.
Are there any other questions? Oh, Mr. Cole.
Okay. Well, this is another question for staff. I mean, that's not really our call. That's their call, though, right?
Well, through the chair,
I'm
Mr.
worried about this issue that we've talked about. If we vote something down, I know that causes some problems. We don't want to do that.
I think that the postponement would that should be a decision of the board, not of the. Certainly, the petitioner can offer that, and the board could, accept it. But I think that decision lies with the board.
Okay. Thanks.
Are there any additional questions for Mr. Mander? Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any additional testimony from the public?
Good evening. My name is Elisa Snelling. Spelling is Snelling. I'm going to probably wear a couple of different hats tonight, and I'll do my best to let you know which one I'm wearing. I am the president of the Eagle River Valley Community Council, and when Dr. Peters came and spoke with our council in our December meeting, I did remove myself from chairing that portion of the conversation and having our previous chair.
So is that who you're representing tonight?
No, I'm going to represent myself.
Okay, thank you.
And so I've tried to remove myself from that position as best I can and as publicly as I can. When you look at this map, there is a little pentagon-shaped lot. That's mine. So I'm very much aware of the roadways, the right-of-ways, the signs, the steepness, the road conditions, the everything. Because of the different hats that I wear, I feel like I'm in kind of a cross position. I don't want to be adverse to my neighbor. I want good neighborly relations, and I want to support what he's doing. But I do have my own questions through many of the comments that I've read and comments that I've obviously heard at our council. One of the things that I hear overriding is that the council got one set of information for everybody to review, and that now there's different information out there. And as a homeowner and somebody who'll be directly impacted by movement of right-of-way or vacating of right-of-way, changing, I'd like to see what's current, but I haven't. And I don't feel like I can even put in my comments, fully because of that. I hear, and please correct me if I'm wrong because this is my interpretation, that traffic is willing to set aside one cul-de-sac or turnaround element for a certain right-of-way. And that sounds like we're trading safety for access. But maybe you can help clarify that.
Through the chair, I can't really comment on what traffic's position is because I only had a very brief conversation with traffic. I do agree that this is a safety situation. They may very well, feel that regardless of the vacation or regardless of the rededication of the right-of-way, that the cul-de-sac is necessary. It seemed to me in the conversation that they would entertain the idea of not improving or not requiring improvements if the dedication was to occur. But again, the reason why I wrote the condition the way I did was to give the traffic department the opportunity to make that decision and not myself.
Thank you for that. Living up there, I'm intimately aware of the current cul-de-sac that sits up there at the top and where Steeple pulls off. I would always, encourage a safe enough turnaround for emergency vehicles because fire does travel uphill, which is where I'm at. But I trust other people that know traffic studies and all of that kind of stuff, and so I don't want to interject too many personal feelings into it. But as a neighbor and as a council member, looking at it, not as a council representative, if there's been changes, I'd like to see them and have a chance to weigh in after seeing them, not on the fly, so to speak.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Mr. Fuller.
The current road has some kind of a cul-de-sac at that point?
May I show you? Because I've made a bunch of chicken scratch on this map, because this map doesn't show any of the real stuff that's actually there to the benefit of our neighbors that I don't think you guys have the opportunity to see.
Well, we got a aerial photo here. This is Steeple. So there is actually a cul-de-sac that exists currently, a turnaround. Can a fire truck or ambulance get to your house now?
They can get up, and we designed our driveway specifically so that they can get up and turn around. We have that driveway.
So are you willing to share in the proportional cost of creating that cul-de-sac then, relative to your frontage?
I had a fire come up and
Oh,
drive
50
it.
feet.
Where are you looking at 50 feet?
Well, I mean, that's what it takes to turn a fire truck.
Through the chair, I think it might be important to hear what conversation they're having here. I feel like I'm not getting all the information here. Just
well,
please use the microphone.
Representing that under this little thing that says right-of-way angle area is actually a turnaround that currently exists.
It's more of an oblong shape.
Use the microphone, please.
It's more of an oblong shape, but it is a cul-de-sac, and you can turn around a fairly decent-sized vehicle up there. I don't think these maps really show you that I don't think he should have to build necessarily a full thing, because there is something there. I like to just make sure, if anything, there's decent access to a little further down, but that's it, as a property owner who owns property up above. But
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to testify?
Good evening. My name is Jill Blackstone, just like it sounds, Blackstone. The only map I have is what I got in the mail, but I am familiar with the area, and I think you were just discussing the current turnaround is not where the end of Steeple Drive easement hits the section line. The current turnaround is down below that, and that would still be in existence whether they move the easement or not. So the changing of the easement is not going to affect the safety access to that area. So that's my comment. I don't understand why an individual property owner would be responsible for creating some new safety access that isn't already in existence for that neighborhood.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public wishing to testify? Anyone at all? How much time do we have left? Mr. Dreyer, you have 3 minutes and 29 seconds for rebuttal.
First off, I'd like to make it clear that we're not taking away any of the access points. We're actually improving them. The current situation is there's a right-of-way that cannot be built to the west or to the east off of its intersection point with the section line. The right-of-way we're providing was as per Department Recommendation A1, dedicating a 60-foot right-of-way up to the section line easement between Section 6 and 7. And location of the right-of-ways to be resolved with the current planning section, and we're fine with that. We are improving the access to the most desired access point, which was ER 11. And we are basically just improving the whole situation here. And to extend this on meeting after meeting, it's just really not necessary. And I'd also like to add that the cost of a turnaround would stop this plat dead. So everybody loses in. You're still stuck with the old right-of-way that doesn't work, and no turnaround and nothing. And the Platting Board, I myself was on the Platting Board for 3 years, 94 to 97, somewhere in there. And you are the board responsible for making these kind of changes, such as that Note 4 being deleted. That is why the Platting Board exists. It's within your purview. Staff provides input, we provide input, you make the decision. And with that, should I add anything?
Just to reiterate that all that has been really confirmed here is that there is no change in the use of the need for vehicular traffic or for safety vehicles. Even Mr. Whitfield acknowledged it's either the same or it's a lower density. This would just be asking a private landowner to shoulder a benefit to other people in the community, which should rightfully be borne by all through their taxes. And that's why we reiterate that we'd like to see number 4 taken off.
Richard? And that's it for now. Make
Thank you.
yourself available for any questions. Thank you.
And there are questions. Mr. Whitfield.
Through the chair to the board, not a question, but just to reiterate my position on the proposed plat note. I don't believe that it's appropriate. I don't believe that you can, by plat note, dictate the use of municipal right-of-way. I'm opposed to that plat note, and I believe that I'm not even sure that it's within the jurisdiction of the Platting Board to place a plat note that would restrict use of public right-of-way. I don't believe that it's that you have the authority to do that. But I just want to, restate my position that I am opposed to that plat note. And yeah, that's it.
Mr. Whitfield, are you talking about plat note number 4? Oh, 7.
I'm talking about the plat note that would limit public right-of-way to road purposes only and no trail purposes. I don't believe that the Platting Board has the authority to dictate what can happen within public right-of-way.
I understand. Thank you. Are there any other questions of the petitioner?
Could I add something on note number 7? And that note number 7, I think Mr. Whitfield is probably correct on that. And it's almost more like you want to send a message to the department, the Chugach access people. And so if this can't be a note on the plat, it's not that big of a deal. It's more we just want to send a message to the people, hey, you put in these access points, you need to take responsibility. Build a parking lot, build a road all the way to it, and do it correct. So.
And Mr. Dreyer, how would we send that message if we're not going to put number 7 on the conditions? How would we send that message?
Well, through the review process, I guess, through the Chugach access plan. And I don't know if the Platting Board had a chance to review the GAP. Did the Platting Board review it? Or was it only a Planning and Zoning Commission? Yeah. So if I was before the Planning and Zoning Commission, it could be a direct tie-in to the verbiage within the GAP.
And tonight, for us, how would we send that message?
Well, I'm not 100% sure.
Thank you. Mr. Whitfield.
Through the chair to the board, I believe that Mr. Dreyer is correct. This platting action is not the place to address the access, for the Chugach access plan. I think if the petitioner is opposed to the Chugach access plan and is opposed to allowing access through ER10, then that needs to be addressed at the assembly meeting when the Chugach access plan is before them, not here at the Platting Board and with a plat note.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the petitioner? I don't see any. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And the public hearing portion of this meeting is now closed. The matter rests with the board. And may I have a positive motion in the case of S12039-1, Highland Terraces subdivision for, we have approval of the request to vacate a portion of the right-of-way. May I have a positive motion, please? Mr. Walker. Mr. Fuller seconds.
As the case S12039-1, Highland Terrace subdivision, I move to approve the request to vacate a portion of the right-of-way known as Steeple Drive and a 10-foot utility and slope easement, subject to dedicating a 60-foot wide right-of-way from the dedicated portion of Steeple Drive to the section line easement between sections 6 and 7. The location of the right-of-way is to be resolved with the current planning section, and 2, recording a suitable plat within 18 months of its preliminary approval.
Thank you. And Mr. Walker, would you speak to your motion, please?
Well, we've had pretty extensive hearing here today. It does appear that this is a simple matter dealing with substituting an existing right-of-way over a steep section of terrain for a newer one that would follow a substantially lower slope and would provide adequate access to the neighboring parcels. And therefore, because we're not actually vacating a right-of-way without substituting it, I think that we don't need to find a lack of, what's the standard, I think, that it has no use, basically because we're substituting it for another one.
Thank you. And is there any discussion on this matter? Is there any opposition to this motion? The motion carries. May I have a positive motion, please, for the approval of plat for 18 months with conditions? Mr. Walker And Mr. Fuller is going to second.
As case S120391 Highland Terrace subdivision, I move to approve the plat for 18 months, subject to conditions 1 through 6, as identified on pages 6 and 7 of the staff notes.
Thank you. And Mr. Walker, will you speak to your motion, please?
This is a preliminary plat, not a final plat. The resolution with traffic section with respect to item 4B4 may in fact resolve to that a turnaround is not required. They will have an opportunity to come back before the board on their final plat within 18 months to resolve that issue if they can't get it resolved with traffic. They had an opportunity to have resolved that before this meeting, but that was their choice. The existing turnaround that exists there apparently is adequate for servicing the given area. That turnaround area still would be available, at least during this preliminary plat time. There is no additional burden that is being created by this development or the changing of the lot lines for these parcels. The as far as the other addition that he's requested, a plat note, I find that's not appropriate in this case. I think a right-of-way is open for municipal purposes, is open for all purposes, and that all trail users as well as hikers and other vehicle traffic should be able to use the property.
Thank you. Is there any additional comments? Mr. Cole. Thank you.
I intend to vote in favor of this. I just want to make, for the record, some comments. We rely significantly upon the recommendations of staff, the people that make comments. We rely upon people meeting with staff to work these things out, and I haven't received a sense that in this particular case the petitioner has done that. I think that's unfortunate. I'm also a little bit frustrated by the fact that we've gotten so much stuff afterward, after the staff's comments were made, and many of the comments don't seem appropriate given the circumstances, but I'm not willing to substitute my thoughts or reasoning for the staff and the people that are out telling me that these things need to be taken in consideration. One of them being whether it is necessary or not, I don't know, this turnaround. I'm not convinced that it is a lesser burden. I think it's about the same. And nothing really explains to me that the burden's changed at all. This property was this way when the petitioner bought it. He knew about it. And so the other thing I want to just say is it doesn't help us to come up here. It doesn't help me. I'm not going to speak for the board to come up here and tell us that somebody's extorting money out of you. I mean, I personally listen very carefully when people come up and testify, and I understand these are emotional issues. I understand that people get frustrated, but those are really serious accusations that I see as an attorney no merit to. There has been no requirement. This is simply being sent to traffic for you to work it out, the petitioner. I think you should take advantage of that. I don't think you should go in with such a negative connotation, because I don't think that's going to help. These are things that I think are important. We rely upon the system. Sometimes it's frustrating. Sometimes we don't get what we want. But it's best to work through the system first And then if there's a problem, you can come back in front of us and we can see what we can do. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or findings?
Yeah,
Mr. Fuller.
I would agree with Mr. Cole. I think that that we do rely, especially when we have that wording that's kind of vague, that for them to work it out, and we wouldn't want to have the report come back that they didn't have good reason to require something as extensive as that. So I'm personally interested in how this turns out, but I will be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Mr. Edmondson.
Through the chair, I agree with what Mr. Cole and what Mr. Fuller have indicated as well. When there's ample time to resolve these things with staff before it comes to the board, it's always to the petitioner's advantage to take that opportunity. I see that there's been numerous changes, after the fact here, and that all those that were reviewed the initial proposal, it's changed. And I don't think that the condition to resolve with traffic means that they have carte blanche. I think it means that you have an opportunity to resolve the need for it or not. So it would have been nice if that would have been addressed prior to the hearing, and would have made this process a lot simpler for the petitioner and for the board. But I don't find the condition to be onerous, and I too will be supporting the motion.
Thank you. Are there any additional comments or findings? I guess I do, so I'll be the last. I see part of this, personally, I wish that this had been resolved with traffic instead of asking us to resolve it. But what I see is a 15% slope that can't be built. I'd be surprised that traffic would support that. I see the alternative as a workable solution by dedicating a right-of-way that goes around the property boundary up to Eagle River access point, or trail access point 11. That does make sense. It does solve a lot of problems. And because of the oversteepness of the route that's being proposed to be vacated, I too will support this motion. Is there any opposition to this motion? Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, the motion carries. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is persons to be heard. I don't believe there are any persons to be heard. There are reports, or there are not reports. However, Mr. Walker brought to my attention that some of the members on the board, their terms are going to expire. Is that correct? And do we have a couple of minutes to address that or not?
I just have a couple of minutes.
Okay. We'll go quickly.
Looks like Anthony Kange's term expires March 2014, and Story and Edmondson are up in October 2014.
I don't know. Is that different than what you have?
Yeah, October. That's what you have. That's what I said. 2014. It is 2014.
That's for Mr. Kange. Oh, they're all October.
Everybody's October? Okay, because this is information that had been given to me. To some extent, I guess, are we looking and recruiting new people, or are you guys going to re-up?
Are we going to look for new board members?
I've personally been on the board for this will be my 6th year on the board, and I do have a recommendation for my position, if that helps.
It does.
for October. So there's other individuals in our office that would be suitable to be on the board that I think would help the board and
I just thought we'd, instead of having vacancies and filling them in the hindsight, if we got proactive, we could
Yep. I've
Keep
got
us-
somebody
keep
in
us
mind
strong
that
and
has
going.
already talked to them, so if I can make that recommendation when the time's appropriate, I would certainly do that.
From my experience, it's taken about 3 months to get through the mayor's office. So I would want to, if you go through me, I would like to see that recommendation at least 3 months before October. Thank you. Okay. Then is there any other business for tonight to address? Then I would like a motion to adjourn. Mr. Edmondson, Mr. Walker seconds. Meeting is adjourned.